there's been a rearrangement of the up to 3.8%. That went up when the second batch of postal votes came in. So the postal votes are better, and that's sort of lifting the swing and the projected swing. Let's look at the map of the results at the moment. There's one big one come in there, which is that. There's Langwarrin, which is a much better polling place for the Liberal Party, and we look at the swing in Langwarrin, it's 11%, so it's a much bigger swing there. Is it specific to that? Has been a change in polling places? Yeah, so that's that swing in that one polling place plus the additional postals is what's brought that swing down slightly to 3.8, and so Labor's on 52.5 now, which is one of the reasons why I've not been prepared to call it so far.
Thank you, Anthony. Anthony Green there. Keith Wolahan.
Just before you go to Keith Wolahan, I've just got a message here from a senior Labor figure saying that Labor is calling it. I know we're waiting for Anthony Green. We won't call it here at the ABC until Anthony does. But Labor is calling it that Jodi Belllier has won Dunkley. They've held on to the seat of Dunkley there in Melbourne. According to the Labor sources, the Labor Party, they are very confident now and are calling it that Jodi Belllier has won.
Interesting.
Now, we'll wait for Anthony Green, though, before we call it, but just wanted to pass that on.
We won't call it, but obviously the Labor Party showing that they feel very confident based on their own projections. Let's bring in Keith Wolahan, Victorian Liberal MP. Keith, David just shared with us that the Labor Party believes they're on track to win this seat. Is that your assessment?
I'm getting deja vu and PTSD from last year sitting with you, PK, and the team. Look, if Anthony is close to calling it, it is looking it that way, but I'll wait for Anthony to make it official.
OK, you must be pretty disappointed, though. We've been saying throughout the evening we are in a cost of living crisis. We have had multiple interest rate rises, 12 interest rate rises. This was the perfect storm, wasn't it, for you to pick up a seat like this? What went wrong?
I want to take you back to a year ago where, again, sitting with you, my party faced a 6% two-party preferred swing. We're now facing a swing towards us two-party preferred, looking like a 3 in front of it. You know, you add those two together, that's a big change from where we were a year ago. And I think that's something to celebrate and something to build upon going ahead to the next election.
You are, Keith Wolahan, still one of only 3 Liberals in metropolitan Melbourne. Nathan Conroy does not look like we'll be joining you as a 4th. What does that tell you about how the Liberal Party is travelling, what it still needs to do in Australia's second largest city?
Well, it depends how you define metropolitan Melbourne. On other definitions, we have 2. So no denying my party has significant work to do in what will be the largest city in Australia. Future governments, the pathway to future governments will be through Melbourne. And I think we do have a good story to tell under the leadership of Peter Dutton. And the onus is on us to earn the trust of Melbourne. And I think today is a step forward. I would have loved to have had Nathan sitting on our side, but I'd like to think that we can get there in the next election, whenever it's called.
What do you need to do that you're not doing at the moment?
And I think the self-reflection starts now. I think Peter Dutton and the team have done an amazing job holding this government to account. But the other side of the equation is making it very clear what we stand for and what solutions we have to the problems that people in Melbourne and Australia are facing.
You need some policies.
And in my mind, after cost of living,
you need some policies?
Of course we do. And after cost of living, housing is a top-tier issue. And I'm convinced that whoever can offer a credible solution to young Australians affording a home of their own will have a pathway to government. And I'd like to have my party leading that discussion and providing a real way for average incomes to say they can afford a home again.
OK, Keith Wolahan, thank you for joining us. Let's go to Anthony Green now. He has some news. Anthony?
Yes. What we just got then was we got the pre-poll centres, which was from Frankston, and the result in the Frankston pre-poll has exactly the same sort of swing we've seen everywhere else. The Liberal votes up 6 or 7%, Labor votes unchanged, and they're ahead. That's widened, that 12,000 votes has widened that first preference gap, and I think it's widened it to an extent that it can't be narrowed. The Labor Party scrutineers, of course, get those figures before we do. We have to wait for them to come through the computer system from the Electoral Commission. So the party scrutineers Albanese are always ahead of us. So the change in vote that's now occurring is the Labor votes there, Liberal votes still up 7, others, etc. down there. The two-party preferred swing is still about 3.8%, but we're actually relatively confident now that that seat will be decided and that Jody Bellier will be still saying ahead, but we're saying Jody Bellier will win that seat.
So
And that's been a victory for the Labor Party.
OK, so you're calling it. You're saying Jody is the one that will win tonight. Just walk me through how significant that swing is. Where is it kind of sitting at right now?
That swing is on 3.8%, which is the average swing you see at by-elections.
It's right on it, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's the sort of by-election swing you see. I think Peter Dutton was predicting 3. It's a little bit higher at 3.8. If the Liberal Party do particularly well with postals, then the swing might go up a little bit, but it's not going to add 2.5% to get them to 50. So that is not that 3.8 with 28 or 36 polling places is not going to turn into 6.3.
What normally,
so at this stage,
putting you on the spot here, Anthony, but with a by-election, the primary vote it's so interesting to me that the Labor primary vote basically hasn't moved. In fact, it's gone up just a whisker. How unusual or how normal is that?
They had a rather good result last time at about 40%. They were well ahead on first preferences. So they had a very strong first preference vote last time. As I said, I think the Greens' support might have drifted towards Labor, and that's what's held it up. There has been a small swing against them. There has been while I was talking about that change in vote, and it had come from the United Australia Party and One Nation. Of course, that's gone directly across, so that's a full value vote. When they voted for those parties last time, the Liberal Party only got 65% of it as preferences. So that's what translates into a two-party preferred swing. But the Labor vote is relatively unchanged, and so that's a good result for the Labor Party at a by-election. They are still leading on first preferences. I thought they would fall into second place on first preferences and maybe get there on preferences. But I did think it would be a battle for first preferences. But I think the Labor Party's done all right to, if you have a look at the vote, they're ahead by over 1,000 votes, 40.7 to 39. So at this stage, we can call Jody Bellier as the new Labor member for Dunkley.
Anthony, thank you. There you go. Anthony Green has called it. Labor's won. And as he said at the start of the night, a good result for Labor would be a win. They've got to win. In fact, it's a better result than I think many in Labor were fearing, that's for sure. It does vindicate the decision to change those stage 3 tax cuts about a month out from this by-election, beginning the political year. There are questions now within the Liberal Party. Look, I'm sure Peter Dutton will point to the 7% increase in the Liberals' primary vote, but that has come largely from the fact that One Nation and the Palmer United Party that ran at the last election aren't running here. So on the right, those votes have come home to the Liberal Party in this by-election. But he still hasn't performed. The Liberals haven't performed in the parts of outer Melbourne there where they need to perform.
But he hasn't taken votes off Labor. That's fundamentally the problem for him, because without taking votes off Labor, this strategy that he's outlined, Tony, is going to falter, isn't it? I mean, that's at the centre of it. That's the story. You know, he's got the votes, the One Nation votes, the Palmer United Party votes, but not actually taking votes off Labor.
Yeah, I mean, the headline is Labor's primary has stayed the same, which is an incredible achievement given the circumstances. But, you know, if you're looking from the Liberal side, yes, there's been growth in the primary, and yes, there's a couple of parties out of the picture, but there were a few Libertarian independents in the conversation this time. But if you're looking at Carrum Downs, and Cos and I spoke at the start about that being a litmus area for beyond Dunkley, seats like Werriwa, Hasluck and so forth, the Labor primary has fallen minus 2.2.
Okay.
And, you know, some seats like Carrum Downs, it was minus 5.5 and minus 6.3 in Carrum Downs South.
That's a worry for Labor.
It is a bit of a worry. I mean, you know, they've performed very strongly, there's no doubt, and it's a strong win. But there's some lessons for Labor as well.
So where did just sticking with the Liberals though, just to recap and remind people, where in the seat did they do best? Amongst what type of voters have they done well?
It's very lumpy. There's been double-digit swings, and notwithstanding again that some of those parties aren't in the frame this time, there's been double-digit swings to the Liberal Party in Carrum Downs South, Frankston Heights East, Karangal Central, Lang Warren and Mount Eliza.
So to explain to people what sort of voters you're talking about there.
Well, it's very lumpy. You know, sort of that's pretty much all the parts of the electorate. So it's hard to find a pattern at the moment. And the postal votes don't look like they're particularly strong at the moment.
No,
Is
but-
it also worth just noting that the no vote on The Voice in October, which was particularly strong in Dunkley, a 53% no vote, wasn't it? Hasn't really translated into a backlash to Labor tonight.
No, two separate issues. And I think, the great problem in politics is major parties love to conflate the two issues and they're entirely separate. And the capacity to learn the wrong lessons out of any sort of contest is manifest.
Because we said lumpy. OK, we're going to move now to Jane Hume, who's speaking at Liberal Party headquarters.
As well. Do you know, Dunkley was never a marginal seat. 6.3% is not a marginal seat. But by hell, it's a marginal seat now. So congratulations. You have done such an extraordinary job. Such an extraordinary job. Now, before we begin, I want to pay tribute to Peter Murphy. Peter Murphy was a lovely lady. She was a popular local candidate, popular local member, and a really good person. And it was a terrible shame that we're all here today. I want to thank you all for the respectful way that you have conducted yourselves throughout this campaign. You've been amazing. Amazing. I can't quite say the same for those from the government, though. It's been a really tough campaign, really hard fought, extraordinarily, almost hand-to-hand combat on some booths. But can I tell you, even though this was always going to be a tough ask, we had three things going for us. We had a fantastic campaign, a terrific campaign. So I want to thank the Federal Secretariat, I want to thank the State Secretariat, and most importantly, I want to thank all of you that worked on booths, that ran booths, that did scrutineering, that went and bought icy poles on 40-degree days on pre-poll. You have done such a great job. Do you know that we made 70,000 calls in Dunkley? 70,000 calls. So well done to all of you. That is great stuff. Wait. Most importantly, we had a terrific candidate. A terrific candidate. In Nathan Conroy. Wave to the people. We had a terrific candidate in Nathan Conroy. Before I hand over to Susan Lee, let me just say what a joy, what a pleasure it has been campaigning with this man, campaigning with his family. He is courageous. He's a courageous man. You should have seen the intimidation that was levelled at him on the booths, not just today, but for the last 2 weeks. He stood up to Labor. He took the toe-to-toe. He took the fight right up to them. Congratulations, Nathan. You are a fantastic man. Day he was out there delivering for Dunkley, and he will do so again. Now, before we introduce Nathan, can I please introduce one of my favourite women in the world, the Deputy Leader of the Liberal Party, Susan Lee.
Fellow Liberals, today the people of Dunkley have sent Anthony Albanese a really strong message. And it's not happy birthday. It's not happy birthday. It's do something about the cost of living crisis. That's the message that the people of Dunkley have sent to this Prime Minister. Now, you know, the average swing in a by-election against a first-term government is 1.5%. Nathan Conroy has doubled, maybe even tripled that today. And I've been around the booths, I've looked at some signs. There was actually an interesting one that said, vote for Nathan Conroy is a vote for Peter Dutton. Well, my oath it is. My oath it is. A vote for Nathan Conroy, a swing to Nathan Conroy is a swing towards the federal Liberals. To Peter Dutton, our fantastic, fearless leader, to the federal Liberal team in the room tonight, and to the Liberal Party volunteers whose heart and soul has worked so hard for this seat today. You are our heroes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, like I said, Mr. Prime Minister, happy birthday. We're just getting started. We are coming after you in Aston, in Higgins, in McEwen, in my home state of New South Wales. Yeah, I'm only just over the border. We're coming after you in Parramatta, in Gilmore, in Bennelong. We're coming after you in Lyons in Tasmania and Boothby in South Australia. Because you know what? You know what? A swing of 3 to 4% would net us 11 seats. That's enough in the next Parliament to form government. So Nathan Conroy has shown the way today. The people of Dunkley have shown the way today. Now, to those who changed their vote from the last election and voted Liberal this time, in the seat of Dunkley, I want to say thank you. Thank you for the trust and faith you've placed in the Liberal Party. We won't let you down. For those who didn't change their vote, I want to say we will work bloody hard to get your vote next time. And we'll do it, thank you, we'll work bloody hard to get your vote next time. We'll do it with humility and unity, because that's the Liberal way. That's the Liberal way. That's the leadership of Peter Dutton. Now, Nathan, I'm handing over to you, but I want to say it has been a pleasure and a privilege to campaign alongside you. You have climbed every mountain. You are a class act. You have done Dunkley proud. Thank you so much for being there every day on the front line. Couldn't have got this result with anyone else. You have done extraordinarily well. And everybody, the results are not all in yet. Let's see where it lands. Over to you, Nathan.
Thank you so much. Honestly, I just want to thank every single person in this room for what you have done for me and my family and the Liberal brand over the last 6 weeks. Thank you so much. We've had Liberal members from all over the state and country come down. We've had community members who are not Liberal members who come in and backed my campaign. And you had my wife and my family who supported me through it all. This journey didn't start just 6 weeks ago. It started before Christmas, and it has been a journey. I tell you that. But I want to just reflect on Peter Dutton, Jane Hume, Susan Lee, and the whole Parliamentary Party who have come and gave their unwavering support for me over the last 6 weeks. We couldn't have done it without you. I want to thank all the volunteers and the campaign team for the strong, positive campaign that we have led over the last 6 weeks, and no matter what challenges went against me or my family, every single day we, as Michelle Obama would say, when they go low, we go high. Although the result didn't go our way tonight, it is a great opportunity to highlight the big swing that we had, both on primary and two-party preferred, because the next election, we are coming for Albanese and his government. of living is in crisis, healthcare is in crisis, housing is in crisis, and I can tell you now, crime is on the rise, community infrastructure being cut. These are the things that matter to the people of Dunkley, Victoria and Australia, and we've sent Albanese a message tonight. There's a couple of things before I finish. The three things is, the three good things that came from this campaign is I got to meet thousands of my community and listen and talk to as many people as possible to learn exactly what the challenges they're facing. Yeah. The second is I lost 15 kilos. Thank you very much. And an Irishman actually has a tan. Can you believe it? And the last one is the best news. Just before I came up on the stage, my wife whispered in my ear that we are having our second child. To be honest, I don't know when I got the time to do it, but I did it. I'm sorry, everybody. Now, it's back to the serious thing. And this is very, very serious. I just want to reflect just for a moment. I asked my campaign team, could we have done anything more? Could we have rang more people, done more social media ads, more letterbox drops? Could we have door knocked? Could we have done anything? And the answer is we have left it all on the field. And lastly, I just want to reflect why we actually are here in the first place. Peter Murphy, as you can see for the last 6 weeks, her legacy is alive and well because she was a strong community advocate. And I tell you, I congratulated Jodie a few moments ago because she is now the next member for Dunkley. But I wish her well, because if she does well, our community does well, and our country does well.
Good on you.
Final thing before I stop, because Jeff Kennett is getting restless, is we've talked to people, we've been out, we spoke to people, the entire party came behind me, which I am extremely grateful for. My family are here and my wife is here, and we could not have done it with us all coming together, being united, and selling one positive message. So thank you all so much, and go Liberals!
We may not have won this by-election, but Nathan Conroy, the Liberal candidate, pretty upbeat there, and had some good news as he stepped up on stage from his wife about having
a whispered in his ear before he came on.
How about that? Congratulations to them. But as we heard at the end, congratulations to Jodie Bellier, the Labor candidate who has held this seat for the Labor Party, for the Albanese government. We're going to hear in about, 10 or 15 minutes from the winner tonight, Jodie Bellier. But listening there to Nathan Conroy, before him, Susan Lee and Jane Hume, all PK really focusing on the positives. This is a very glass half full take on what's happened tonight.
Oh, it was very much revving up the Liberal Party base, wasn't it, that this was an incredible result. Look, we all know that this is all about spin, right? I mean, and having to sell a message to your supporters who, in that room, have done a lot of the hard yards over the last few weeks.
Nathan Conroy, in fact, went to some lengths, I thought, to say we left it all on the field at the local level. We did everything. He listed how many phone calls, and it sounded like he was saying we couldn't have done anything more at the local level here in Dunkley. None of them reflecting on what they might still need to do to pick up.
No, there's none of that yet. But interestingly, from Susan Lee, she mentioned that, you know, one of the attack lines obviously is a vote for Nathan Conroy is a vote for Peter Dutton. And she really lent into that and said, yes, you know, like trying to bolster the Peter Dutton brand. And
that he's done well tonight.
That he has done well, that this is a sign that Victoria has given him a good result. Now, you know, they can say what they like, and it makes sense that at a Liberal Party function where Nathan Conroy, who clearly will be their next candidate for this seat, and he has made that margin a lot thinner, as Susan Lee made the point, it is a marginal seat now.
Just a fact check, though. She did note that if the swing is 3 to 4%, they'd win, I think, 11 seats, she said, and that would put them in government.
Tony, no?
It wouldn't.
No.
They did more than that. But anyway, just nitpicking here now. But what did you make of the concession speeches there, Tony?
Look, you know, obviously coming off a low base for the Victorian Liberal Party, you know, there were signs of encouragement tonight. Normally by this time the lights are off and the sausage rolls are cold. So the fact that there's still people there.
A better night than they've had for a while.
Yeah, it's been a long time since we've gone past, you know, 8 o'clock for a party. And
but that's look, I'm going to be blunt here. That's a very low bar.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
It's the Victorian Liberal.
So you wouldn't be having a party for the Liberal Party?
Oh, I think there's signs. There's some encouraging signs.
Okay.
You know, there was a 7% growth in primary. You want to earn the vote. You don't want to, you know, notwithstanding you had other parties not involved, there were still 8 candidates in the field. So the Liberal Party has grown their primary vote. That's a plus. They've performed pretty well in those Carrum Down boos, which we discuss as Liberals boos. But the headline here is that Labor's kept their primary vote at 40%, which was already very high. And they've maintained that despite, you know, these cost of living pressures. And I think, you know, we come back to that why. And I think, you know, Jim Chalmers has been doing a lot of heavy lifting on the tax cuts. And I think that's given the government something to speak about, something to get into the conversation.
Yeah,
but sorry to jump in, is the concern, or should the concern be for Liberals that come election time, we might have a different cost of living environment? We might have interest rates coming down or have already started to come down. Is there a concern that this might be the high water mark on cost of living for them?
Yeah, in a lot of our research, we ask soft voters, what are the signposts or the proof points to you that the economy is turning? And no surprise, it's interest rates. It's not the National Account figures or the Productivity Commission report, all due respect to our friends at the Productivity Commission. The proof point is interest rate cuts. So I can see a situation, if there is an interest rate cut coming up in the next 12 months, that Albanese uses that as a trigger to sort of say, our economic plan is working, we've turned the corner, I need your vote so we can keep on with the job next term. And that's a very persuasive and compelling message on the soft voters that we talk to in our focus groups.
Cos, what are the lessons for the Liberal Party? I mean, there might be some signs that, as Tony says, maybe a little bit positive, but there's a lot of negative here too.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I mentioned this before, and that is they've been able to basically hoover up all that One Nation UOP vote, and I touched on about the demographic traits of these voters. They're a lot older. They generally don't suffer the affordability pinch as much as the voters that are sitting on Labor's poll right now. And it's the voters that are sitting on Labor's poll right now that are going to determine that next election result in those critical outer suburban electorates that I listed at the beginning of this telecast. And I think, you know, yes, they should be encouraged that they've been able to consolidate that base, but come next federal election, UOP or One Nation will be there.
Another squillion dollars.
They'll be there.
And, you know, there'll be yellow ads everywhere.
That's right.
And
yeah.
So, but in some of these Carrum Downs booths, there are swings to the Liberal Party. How concerning for Labor should it be that there has been movement in some parts of the electorate away from them?
Yeah, they need to obviously pay very close attention to that particular trend. But I would say their primary vote's still in these booths holding up. It's again that right-wing vote moving across to them in very significant numbers. And look, we shouldn't discount what they've been able to achieve here, because that's something the Victorian Liberal Party at a state level cannot achieve, has not been able to achieve. Every time there's a state election, they fragment more and more and more. So Peter Dutton's actually done something which the state branch has not been able to pull
No, well,
off.
that's true. Would everyone agree that the Liberal Party in this campaign was a small target? They didn't really have policies. It was all about attacking the government on cost of living, on ute tax.
Oh, entirely they try to make it a referendum on Anthony Albanese and the cost of living.
And this has been a deliberate strategy for Peter Dutton not to make himself and their own policy positions the issue. They'll come later in the term, we're told. Is it time for a rethink of that, or is this the right strategy to stick with this small target approach?
I think send a message was a powerful message, but looking at the general election, the Liberal Party needs to be more than just, and the Labor Party needs to be more than we're not Labor or we're not Liberal, which is a shapeless position. And the Liberal Party, as Cos mentioned before, are losing the economic narrative.
Because we heard Keith Wallahan earlier, who I thought made some really interesting comments to us. He said it is time to get policies out there, and he said housing in particular. You've got a big ring around housing.
In fact, out of everyone we've spoken to on the Liberal side, he's the only one that's contributed tonight, that's my assessment, with what he thinks needs to be the strategy and conceding that, you know, yes, it was better than last year's by-election in Aston, but that this is not where they want to be.
Yeah, the Liberal Party still has a bit of a legacy effect from the, Howard Costello era of being good economic managers, but it's only a legacy effect. And in focus groups, people sort of say, look, they're usually better with money, or they're historically better with money. But nobody attributes that to the now. And so the Liberal Party, to differentiate from the Labor Party, needs to reclaim that debate. And housing is as good an issue as any, particularly with that younger voting cohort, to get back into the conversation. So, the Liberal Party needs to get back to its basics, needs to get back to economic management, where its strengths are. They're never going to win a debate by outflanking Labor from the left. Yes, you can neutralise climate change, you can neutralise some of these other issues and not be a target, but they need to shape the debate by getting back into the economic argument instead of just, these sort of shapeless positions.
Yeah, look, having said that, Labor through much of the last term kept the focus on Morrison and kept that small target approach themselves for much of that term until, what was it, the final quarter, we'd be kicking with the wind and so on. Just speaking of the economic narrative, the Treasurer, Jim Chalmers, has posted on X that while not complacent about the Labor win in Dunkley, very much looking forward to serving with Jody Bellier and very grateful to the working people and communities who saw through scare campaigns and culture wars and voted for our cost of living tax cuts. So obviously claiming credit for the tax cuts, fair enough. Cos, is that the reason why Labor's vote held up?
It brought them back into the conversation. As I touched on before, they were suffering attrition last year. Jim and the Prime Minister and his team have obviously started the year off very, very, very well, and they've been able to bring back that conversation to where the people who voted for them last time want them to stay on.
And that point we were talking about earlier, the referendum legacy after the Prime Minister lost, the yes campaign failed and the no vote was successful. The Prime Minister had spent a lot of last year focusing on the referendum, and the Liberal Party view was that there would be a sort of effect from that. Is that all gone?
Yeah, it's effectively all gone. The public polls that we see across the country...
Sorry, let's go to Jody Bellier, the winner of tonight's by-election. Soon after the sad death of Peter Murphy, and really trying to build on her legacy and convince voters that she would continue that legacy. It was something that I know one or two of the people that I spoke to in Dunkley there last week mentioned that they clearly liked Peter Murphy and didn't want to change parties given her death at this by-election. So that was a reason why some of them stuck.
And it was a key part of the campaign too, sharing that story that in fact Peter Murphy had brought Jody into the fold and brought her into the Labor Party, and they really lent into this image of Jody as a sort of Frankston mum, not a career politician, right? This really talks to their campaign to try and distance themselves from that insider-outsider thing, right? She is a local member. Right behind her, the deputy prime minister, the deputy leader of the Labor Party, and the Defence Minister Richard Marles. Yeah. And he said to us at the beginning of the broadcast, didn't he, David, that he was biting his nails and he was very nervous. He looks He looks stoked, doesn't he? He looks like he's a very happy man.
Labor has far more seats in Melbourne, as we mentioned earlier, and you can see quite a number of those Melbourne MPs. Julian Hill, we can see there, the member for Aston as well. They've all turned out to celebrate this moment. A new colleague that's going to be joining them from the southern capital, Jody Bellier, will be heading to Canberra. Let's take a little listen. And plenty of hugs to be had as she makes her way to the stage there. And
yeah, and just it's. I mean, this is significant. Everyone in this room have been pouring their heart and soul into this campaign over the last couple of weeks, right? And so this is quite. Look at, there's some people crying.
Well, it's a little. I mentioned earlier tonight or this afternoon, Labor's internal polling at the end of this contest. They did a final poll this week. It had them only just a nose in front at 50.5%. So they were pretty nervous, knowing that this could go either way. And look, they've performed better. Jody Bellier's performed better with the numbers we're looking at now. Let's listen to the Deputy Prime Minister, Richard Marles, introduce his new Labor colleague.
Well, let me start tonight by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and pay my respects to elders past and present. Can I say that everybody in this room tonight has a right to feel incredibly proud of all that you have achieved. On behalf of the government and on behalf of the Australian Labor Party as it sits everywhere around the country, I want to thank every person today who handed out on a polling booth, who scrutineered a vote, who has helped during this campaign. We do not achieve results like this but for you, and we are deeply, deeply grateful. Every time there is an election, the Australian people speak. And there are many messages in the result tonight, and I want to assure every Australian that we will examine this closely and understand every message that is there. That the primary vote is where it is today is an enormous credit to Jody Bellier. Peter Murphy was a deeply popular person across the country here in Dunkley, and to have seen the primary vote maintained in the way that Jody has done it is just an extraordinary achievement, which says everything about his single. Tonight is a big night for our Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, who took every opportunity to be here at every moment that he could during this campaign. He was here last night, he was here today. Can I say that all of us who serve with Anthony feel an enormous sense of gratitude, and we are so proud to be members of his team. And tonight is a very big night for our Prime Minister. Labor's tax cuts were about us doing everything we could to work on behalf of working Australians for the household budget, knowing how difficult times are. And they are an example and at the heart of a much broader suite of policies that we have around easing the burden of the cost of living, knowing that people are doing it tough. And I can assure you that with Labor's tax cuts and with all the other measures, from more affordable childcare to cheaper medicines, we go to bed every night and we'll do so from here on in, thinking about how we can improve Australians' lives, how we can make the family budget better, how we can fight for working Australians. Peter Murphy was a giant.
Yeah.
There she was. And I am it's so special for all of us that Rod is here tonight. We miss her deeply, and as every day goes by, we know how incredible her legacy has been. But wherever Peter is tonight, I know that the person with the biggest smile on her face right now is Peter Murphy. And so with Peter very much front of mind, it is my great honour and my enormous pleasure to introduce to you all the new member for Dunkley, Jody Bellier.
So if I ask you all to try and save some of your applause so I can get through this.
Your legend, Jody.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard, for your beautiful words. And I too would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land, the Bunurong and Boomerang people of the Kulin Nation, this beautiful land by the sea, and pay my respects to elders past and present. Short time ago, I received a very gracious call from Nathan Conroy, and I want to thank Nathan for running a hard-fought campaign. I wish him and his family all the best and look forward to working with him in the future. I am Jody Bellier. But there's more with that. I'm a mum from Frankston with 2 dogs and a mortgage, and I'm going to be your member for Dunkley. I'm not a career politician. I'm someone who wants to make a difference for this great community and further afield. And I'm now going to be your strong local voice in Canberra. In December last year, we lost our dear friend Peter Murphy. Peter was a fierce advocate for our community, and we miss her every day. I need to shout out to Rod Glover for his support this few months to get me through and to support me to be here today.
Yeah,
Thank you, Rod. I am humbled to have the opportunity to follow in Peter Murphy's footsteps and to build on her remarkable legacy. Less than 2 months ago, I was fortunate to be announced as the Labor candidate at the by-election at this very bowls club in Frankston. I'm so very thankful for the support of the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, who put so much faith in me, a rookie. I spoke to him a short time ago, and I am now officially the second most important Jody in Albury. thank you, PM, Prime Minister. I'm very much looking forward to working with you and the team across the Labor Party. I said all along that easing the cost of living is my #1 priority. Labor's tax cuts will make a difference. But the message tonight is that there is still much more to do. I've also been lucky to have the support of so many of my state Labor colleagues. To my good mate, Paul Edbrook. Where are you, mate? To Sonia Kilkenny, Paul Mercurio, Tom McIntosh, Pauline Richards, and Michael Galea. And a big thank you to all my federal colleagues, in particular Julian Hill, who backed me in. To Kate Thwaites, Jess Walsh, who I polled with this afternoon on my last stint, and to Jed Carney. To my amazing team, thank you from the bottom of my heart. From Carrum Downs to Frankston, from Seaford to Mount Eliza, you are the best crew of volunteers I've ever seen. I'm looking down the barrel at you, Mon, because I know you led this. We have door knocked over 15,000 doors across Dunkley. You helped carry out a message that from the 1st of July this year, every taxpayer in Dunkley will get a tax cut. So thank you. And you made sure that the locals knew that I would be a strong local voice for this amazing community. Advance Australia might have had lots of money, but we have something that they don't have, and that is people power. I also want to thank my family, to my husband Dave.
Go Dave!
Thank you for your love, support and patience in cooking so many meals for me and the team. Oh, yeah. And to my amazing young son. I love you so much. To the team that have walked in front, behind and beside me for the past 8 weeks. Jet, Georgie and Lockie. What we have achieved is a result of teamwork and your support of me to get here today. I am deeply grateful for all you have done. Thank you. And finally, to the people of Dunkley, thank you for supporting me and giving me the opportunity to represent you in federal parliament. From the Frankston Hospital upgrade to the Medicare Urgent Care Clinic, from the Hall Road upgrade, I said I would be a strong, passionate local voice for Dunkley. And that is exactly what I will do. Because I am Frankston tough. Yeah.
move that way a bit. There we go.
And that's Jodie Bellier delivering her victory speech, David, a speech where she thanked all of the Labor faithful who have put in the hard yards. Okay.
Richard Marles,
and Richard Marles encouraging everyone to have a drink.
We've talked about those issues over the last few weeks. But anyway, there they are celebrating a by-election win and all celebrating, I'm sure, there in Dunkley. Look, Labor's won this. The swing at the moment is just, well, projected by Anthony Green to be just under 4%, 3.9% towards the Liberals. And that's good enough for Labor to win this seat. Jodie Bellier becomes the new Labor member for Dunkley. Look, a few things to say about this result. It is 3.9% bang on the average of by-election swings against incumbent government, so no surprise there. But Labor's primary vote has held steady. It has not dropped, at least not so far. We'll see some big pre-poll booths in the coming days come through. That might bring it down, but it's basically steady. And that is a pretty good result for Labor. It shows their rejig tax cuts did the trick, kept the Labor vote steady. It did not erode. The Liberal vote's up, but that's because largely there's no One Nation or Palmer United Party running in this by-election. They ran at the last election in Dunkley. They're not there. That right-wing vote has come back to the Liberal Party.
And it was interesting to hear Richard Marles, who of course introduced the candidate who's now victorious, but he talked about examining closely and poring over the result to listen to the messages and not to take really the result for granted, which I thought was a smart message, including on cost of living and what else they can do to provide people with support. And I think, I mean, Cos, that goes to the point you were making a little earlier about, you know, the Labor Party being on this track now. They're back in the conversation. The tax cuts clearly have given them a benefit in this seat, but it can't be the end of the story, right?
Definitely not. There's a lot of work to be done. And I must state that this is Victoria. So it is a lot easier for the Labor brand to perform well in this state than it is, for example, in Queensland. Dunkley is very different to a Blair in Brisbane, for example. So they've got a lot of work ahead of them. Clearly the template they've developed does work. They've bench tested that. We know what it looks like, but they've got many months of work to do.
They were always going to have a budget in May that offers more cost of living relief. I'm not sure if this really will change a lot of their thinking around that. Obviously, they'll examine the results, but they were, I think, already going to do more on cost of living. We're leading up to a federal election in just over a year's time. So I think that was always the path they were on. I think this probably does underscore. Look, it'll be interesting to see what they do with the vehicle emissions standard, which has been copping a fair bit of pressure.
That's right, and they are a little concerned about the way that that's been received, but that is open to a consultation.
But largely, they're you know, all the messages I'm getting from people in government, they're very happy.
Oh, they're stoked. They are very happy. Let's cross to Anthony Green now, our chief election analyst, to give us the latest figures. Anthony?
Counted, I think all that's to come tonight is some extra postal votes, about an extra 4,000 of them. Labor sent ahead on primaries, so that once we got that first preferences came in from the pre-poll centres, the gap widened. The Greens on 6.5. The two-party preferred swing is coming in at 4%, so Labor on 52.4. People asking what the hero button is. It's the thing that comes on and says who's won, and Jodie Bellier is the new member. If we look at where the polling place results, we're seeing mainly red up there in this end of the electorate, blue down the bottom, so it's been a bit of a shift, but not much. And the swings from polling place to polling place, pretty consistent across the electorate, but nothing towards the 6% that was needed by the Labor Party to win the seat.
Thank you, Anthony.
Yeah, I mean, look, for the Liberal Party, Tony, some are pointing to where was Peter Dutton today or tonight. But he was there during the campaign. Interesting that he wasn't there today or tonight. Is that perhaps because he is a drag on the Liberal vote, or is he a positive for the Liberal?
No, look, he played a prominent role in the campaign. Clearly they wanted to keep it on the candidate who had a strong profile. He started with a strong name ID as a mayor, Nathan Conroy. So they really wanted to keep the focus on him, is my presumption there, which makes good strategy. So I think, you know, it was more about the candidates in this contest. But
was it really though? I mean,
well, there's positive signs for the Liberal Party. I mean, notwithstanding, it's probably a par result. But the headline is that Labor's primary maintained at 40, which was incredibly high. And as I said before, this is not Labor heartland. You know, we held 5 out of 5 seats in this area 10 years ago. So
Bruce Bilson held this seat for the Liberals. Bruce Bilson held this seat at Dunkley for 20 years.
Yep. And he was rewarded, and Chris Cruther held it for a short while.
Yeah.
And we
it's
held
only the last 2
seats.
elections that it's been back in Labor hands.
Yeah, and there was a small redistribution that took in those eastern parts of the electorate and lost Mornington. But
and also, I mean, Peter Murphy, who obviously the only reason we're having this by-election is because she died at the end of last year. She had very strong recognition. In fact, all of the speeches demonstrating
on both sides,
right? That's what I mean. Like everyone sort of talking about what a great the fact that Jodie Bellier has been able to win this seat is significant in that context.
Very significant. Yeah.
What about Advance Australia, the Conservative campaign group that spent a lot in this campaign? What did they get for their money?
A donut. They got nothing. So, you know, I think the problem with Advance Australia is they're a bit like your mate who turns up, you know, after you finish painting their house and, you know, they dive into a rescue for a beer and it's like, well, you know, where have you been? And, and you know, their claims that they were involved in the No campaign are tenuous at best.
Really? You don't think they had an impact on the No campaign?
Zero. Yeah. Really? All our research, it was all down to a diabolically bad campaign by Yes23, plus Jacinta Price and Warren Mundine gave soft or persuadable voters permission to vote no. Okay? It had nothing to do with Advance Australia. The problem with Advance Australia is they're cannibalising the Labor Party, the Liberal Party donor list and potentially the volunteer list. So I know there's a lot of Liberals who think it's a great idea that we have this organisation out there running some messages, but, you know, to be frank, running a couple of, you know, ads in the newspaper is a good tactical device.
Well, there wasn't just that. There were the truth trucks, that's what they called them, where they, you know, they had Anthony Albanese's face very large saying, you know, put him last.
Isn't the idea these guys can do the negative stuff that keeps the hands clean for the party?
Yeah, if it's an effective negative message, but the message is there was no evidence that it was shifting soft voters. I mean, the big issue at the moment is cost of living, not sort of, you know, boat people. But in terms of that, you know, mobile billboards are great for name ID, candidate awareness. You know, put the photograph of the candidate and the name, but the notion that somebody's driving along, you know, and
well, that's advanced. Okay, fair enough. And you know, there'll be different views, I'm sure, about the effectiveness or the donut result that they achieved. For the Liberal Party, though, just to come back to the central point here, we're at a cost of living crisis. We've had 13 interest rate rises. People in Dunkley in particular are really feeling it. Their message is all about send Labor a message. Not only that, it was if you don't want Australian women to be assaulted by a foreign criminal. What was it? Vote late. Anyway, I'm maybe getting the quote wrong.
It was a pretty clear message on that, wasn't it?
Pretty full-on message.
And Susan Lee doubled down on it before, saying it was the right thing to do.
What's the Liberal Party? Liberal Party haven't taken the Labor primary vote down at all.
No, and I think, again, we come back to the point of we need to get back to our economic legacy. We need to have an offering to the electorate about, you know, economic policy and housing, and earn the vote. You know, we need to earn the primary vote, and I don't think we're doing enough. Saying we're not Labor is not enough.
Yeah.
I just want to bring you some vision. This is some vision when Jodie Bellier left the function. This is Rod Glover. Rod Glover is the husband of Peter Murphy, who was the MP who, of course, very tragically died at the end of last year. It's very sad. At the end of last year, and Rod has been obviously a very strong supporter of Jodie's and the Labor Party campaign. And look, just on Peter Murphy, I mean, everyone's had something to say throughout the night, all of the candidates, but I knew her quite well too. And, yeah, you don't see many better MPs in Parliament, and her loss to the Parliament was really tragic, obviously for the Labor Party and the Labor movement, but actually just more broadly, she was a policy wonk, the way she got down and did the hard work on the gambling reform work. She was generous, she was caring, a huge loss to the Parliament.
Highly respected, and that gambling work is still unfinished business. We can come back and talk about that another day. Looking at Jodie Bellier there and the similarities, I suppose, with Labor's success in Victoria, in Aston and now in Dunkley, what does it tell us about the type of candidate Cos, that particularly in a by-election, I suppose, but perhaps more generally, that the party needs to go for?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's been a cultural shift within the Labor Party when it comes to selecting its candidates. It needs to maintain that.
It's about, I mean, you heard it there, I'm a Frankston mum.
Absolutely.
I've got a mortgage.
Locals,
I've got
that's
the
right.
dogs.
The years of bringing in a star candidate or someone who clearly doesn't live in the electorate are numbered. And I think the Labor Party learned a few valuable lessons at the last federal election when that happened in a number of seats and we could see the consequences in the result. So, again, they've chosen well, as they did in Aston, and they are bearing the fruits of that really good decision.
So when we hear a candidate like that talk about, I'm a Frankston mum, I've got a mortgage.
That's what voters
This is
want.
all about that local recognition, talking about those issues and saying, I don't want to be a career politician.
Yes.
So going in saying, I'm not ambitious to be,
For the Prime Minister, Cos, he had the tax cut changes that he sold relentlessly. Over the last week, 10 days, he did so much media. He was on every breakfast show and you name it. He worked hard to get this result tonight, but he won't always have that tax cut rabbit to pull out of the hat. It brings us to what needs to be done between now and the election to hold the seats like this, that they're able to withstand swings that could be even greater or more threatening than this. Is it all about putting money in people's pockets? Do they need to, coming back to that housing argument from Keith Wallahan, think about something further on housing that the government needs to do, on renters in particular? What do you think the lessons are?
Yeah, there's definitely still a schism within society between those who are struggling, whether that's finding rental properties, rental prices, those who've got mortgages. The next generation trying to enter the housing market, it's almost impossible if you live in Sydney and Melbourne. Political parties need to wrap their head around that problem and address it. Otherwise, we will see further fragmentation of the electoral landscape. And I mentioned earlier today that Greens have had a bad night, but they've been on that narrative now for the last 18 months, and it's working for them. On rent, and also addressing the intergenerational inequality that exists in our society that is going to animate politics in the years to come. So Labor needs to really think about how it actually talks to this next generation. It's not just the young people in the inner suburbs, it's outer suburban, millennial and Gen Z as well.
Cos Samaras and Tony Barry, once again, thank you so much for walking us through an election night coverage, a by-election night coverage, and your analysis.
There is nothing better than poring over the results with you two and some of your truth bombs. And also thank you, of course, to our chief elections analyst, Anthony Green, who really is, we all know, the highlight of the evening.
He is. He does it every time, and especially on his birthday. So a very happy birthday to Anthony Green. Speaking of birthdays, the Prime Minister's birthday, of course, he said a number of times this morning and during the week that the gift that he was after was holding on to Dunkley, and he's got that birthday wish come true tonight. Now, we're going to pull apart these results tomorrow morning on Insiders. We've got a great panel, PK, as it turns out. You'll be joining us on the couch. We'll also have Nikki Sava and Paul Sakal with us. Dan Tehan, he's the Shadow Immigration Minister and also one of the Liberals' most senior Victorian figures. He'll be joining me tomorrow morning as well. So a good look at what's happened here in Dunkley, what it means now for the political landscape. We assume, just over a year out from the next election. Does this change much in terms of, the strategies for both sides, the government and the opposition? There'll be plenty of debate within the Liberal Party, and I'm already getting some on my text message as well about what this means and where they need to turn. So plenty to chew over tomorrow morning.
That's right, and that's right, Insiders tomorrow from 9 a.m. Thanks for joining us tonight. Gemma Vaness will be back with all the top stories, but stay with us now for If You're Listening. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
And has done so for 50 years.
You know, I've wanted to do this for a long time.
OK, man. Now, people don't make all that much money